Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming in. I know there's only a few people now. People are trickling in. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to talk with this person who has very graciously given me this interview. I've actually kind of had to beg for this interview. So, anyway, I've been very curious about the sovereign citizen community. Before we get into that, thank you for coming. Welcome to Lauren De Laguna. If you haven't already, click like and subscribe. Anyway, I've been very interested in the sovereign citizen community for a while. The reason that I've been interested in them is having done the limited defense work that I have done so far. I have encountered several people who have identified as sovereigns, and as the legal community identifies them as sovereign citizens. So I just wanted to talk to one of them today. And when I went to do research on sovereign citizens, everything that came up was saying like they're a terrorist organization, the FBI condemns them, the CIA condemns them. The AC, everything that you read about them seems like the government is going after them. And it's not just the United States government, it's every government. They're being accused of clogging up the legal system. And even though I'm not saying that I support or disagree or agree, I'm just here to learn about what they think, because I have my understanding of the law and I just want to understand how they come to their conclusions. There's lots of people who identify as sovereigns or understand or believe this methodology of believing. But the communities are hard to find. They've somewhat had to go underground because they're being ostracized so hard. And I can understand why, because it is the idea is somewhat a clog in the legal system. But anyway, I am bringing up someone who I had been begging somebody to come on for an interview for a really long time, named Paul, who is a well-known sovereign, and he made it very clear that he didn't want to come on. And someone in his community reached out and started giving me information about sovereigns, and I just kept begging, just come on for an interview. I just want to understand. I just want to ask people questions and then get responses. I'm just curious about what you believe. Now, this person has remained, or has asked me to remain off camera. So right now they're already on, they're already here, but I'm not going to pull them up to be seen. And I'm not going to say their name. They're more than welcome to say their name if they want to. And I am going to unmute you right now so that you can say your piece.
Hold on. Where would you like
Hi.
to start with this?
So I want to start with this, and I know what you're going to say, but what is a sovereign citizen?
Well, a sovereign citizen is not actually a citizen. And there is no sovereign citizen community. A sovereign is a
Okay.
sovereign. And this is
But
inalienable rights that were granted by God. Go ahead.
you would recognize that people wrongly call people who believe in your mindset sovereign citizens. So like so someone who doesn't believe what you believe might call you a sovereign citizen. Yes. Even if
One
that's the wrong term.
one can only say that they don't believe after they're with the access to the information to come to a conclusion.
Okay, but like for instance, people in the legal community that deal with people who think like you, who think along your mindset, don't they typically call people in your group sovereign citizens? They go, oh, this sovereign citizen, this guy's a sovereign citizen, even if that's the incorrect term. You could recognize that people call you guys that.
What I can tell you is a sovereign is a lawful human. And a citizen, especially a citizen for the corporation, they practice legalese, which legalese and policy and all of that, none of that, it don't trump the law.
Okay, so this is my understanding of sovereign citizen, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong. So my understanding is that sovereign citizen is somewhat of an oxymoron because you can't be both somebody who has all of the rights in which you were supposed to be constitutionally guaranteed and somebody who follows the law, because the law, as you guys see it, has stripped so many rights away from the Constitution. So you have to either choose a sovereign, someone who believes that they keep their rights, but then may get in trouble with the current law and tries to see the law as like an unjust authority, versus a citizen, somebody who recognizes that the law is the law of the land and attempts to abide by those laws.
I
Is that
understand what you're
correct?
saying. I understand what you're saying. I cannot say that that is correct, no. Because that's the thing.
Well,
We are on the land and we're practicing maritime law, and it's all going to go right back to the trust, the Cesta Key, 1666. If you want to have him go ahead and look that up, you know?
okay, I want you to start as if I know absolutely nothing about your belief system, that I am like
Oh, okay.
high
Okay.
school level education and I just came out of civics class and I know what my history teacher taught me about American civics. But now I want to hear what you believe
Okay.
about American civics. And I don't want it to be like a too long thing,
No,
but
I
yeah,
got you
just
right here.
briefly.
How can you quote unquote contract with a newborn maritime manufactured product?
So you're saying like a newborn baby, for instance, is
Exactly.
getting
Exactly.
okay. So the only reason I know that is because I've studied a little bit what the sovereigns believe. Why don't you like explain a little bit what you mean by that? You believe, like for instance, your community believes that babies being forced as American citizens is
I don't
wrong,
belong
and the
to a
American.
community. I'm an individual human. What does human mean? It means a manifested form of light. It's very simple, okay? And when you're born, your parents are told that they have to register you, okay? And then your identity, there's a false identity that they create, okay? If you want to look at it from a placenta or a twin, your straw man contract. And that's how they put you directly into the B system.
Okay, so what do
It's
you
involuntary.
mean? Like birth certificates are involuntary?
I mean, like QSIP numbers that are connected to birth certificates and social security cards that have bonds and trusts connected to them. And you are being sold on the stock market.
How?
I just told you how.
No, but how does having a birth certificate cause me any harm or any numbers associated with that? Like, I think you explained it from a high end level, but can you bring it down to like how does it personally affect me recognizing my birth certificate?
Um, you have a birth date and you have a born date. Okay, that's two different things. I gotta go ahead and pop this up real quick before you try to explain it from a simplified view. Okay,
Yeah. You want me to bring up your image or no?
you can if you want.
Okay, it'll display your name. Do you want that?
I don't care. Just understand I'm
Okay.
not part of a community. I commune with others, but that does not necessarily make it a community, you know?
So you wouldn't say you're part of like Paul Enslaved's community?
He doesn't have a community. He associates with others. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's it's a little different. As my friends explained not that long ago, there's more to a community than just talking. Okay? Now anyways, shipping and manufacturing. Where a ship sits in harbor is called berth. All ships are she. When items come off ship, they are born. She delivers the product. The man, manufacture. The woman delivers the product. When you have been manufactured and she delivers the product, you are the product of a corporation. You are the joint new product of two corporations. Anything those two companies produce, the product belongs to them, not you. Any item coming off that ship has to have a certificate of manifest. Each car has to be represented with paperwork and information about each item. Now, remember how I was just telling you that human means a manifested form of light. You got to go back to the etymology because etymology actually does happen to trump quote unquote legalese, right? Now, docking at the port. When a ship pulls into a harbor with $800 million worth of cars business, it comes in on water. When the ship comes in,
Wait,
it part. Go ahead.
what do you mean by etymology trumps legalese? Because
Because
if you
legalese
were
is
to
trickery.
be, however, if you were to be in the court of law, right, the legalese would be defined as understood,
Language.
yeah, as the understood language, and you would really only go to etymology if there was dispute over the definition of the word, but typically legalese trumps.
You understand what I'm saying. What you
No,
practice
I
is
really,
opposition to my personal beliefs. That's why I kind of had a hard time even doing this with you, okay? But just please hear me
and I
out, okay?
appreciate you coming
Yeah.
on. No, and I appreciate you coming on. And if you ever feel like I'm interrupting you too much, please let me know, because I think it's really awesome that we, like me trying to be an attorney, which is someone who you would strongly dislike with your belief system. You believe like people who are trying to get barred are manipulators and liars. So I really appreciate you taking the time to come here and explain your opinions to me. So thank you. And I don't mean to uh,
Well, no, it's fine. It's a realistic debate. That's exactly what it is. Okay?
I don't even want it to be a debate, honestly. I'm just trying to
Well, I mean
understand your points
that's
of
what
view.
it's gonna be. Yeah. Okay. So, uh, any item coming off that ship has a certificate of manifest. There's your birth certificate. Okay. Now, docking at the port. When a ship pulls into a harbor with $800 million worth of cars business, it comes in on water. When the ship comes in, it parks at the dock. Citizenship, sportsmanship, scholarship, dealership, courtship, citizen on board ship. You understand?
To be honest, I don't, because I would feel like certain laws that apply to items such as cars or things that are being manufactured and shipped would be different than a human being who is born in a
So
hospital.
then
And
why
even
does a
if there
human?
is etymology, hmm
Okay. So why
so
would a human need to be registered just like a vehicle?
so the reason that we have birth certificates is so that we can know who is in this country. So just for purposes of safety, we just know, just like every country keeps records of their citizens.
It's actually for credit. It's for your credit because you're a secured party creditor once you understand what you're doing because you're actually not the debtor. And that's where they confuse you and try to do their legalese trickery and they try to switch up the positions when you're in their court, their kangaroo court. You know what I'm talking about. Your body is a corporation by law. Anything with all capital letters is a corporation by law. You know this. Okay?
So
A dead
here's
body is
so
a corpse, you know?
mhm. Did you watch any of the Daryl Brooks case at all?
I watched some of the flaws that he's doing.
Well, one of the arguments that kept getting brought up by Daryl Brooks that kept getting put down was the argument that, well, my name isn't spelled in all caps. All of this paperwork is Daryl Brooks spelled in all caps. That's not me. I don't recognize people by
Exactly.
that
That's the
name.
corporation trust. It's a
Okay,
false identity that they register
but
without your
that
permission.
argument but that argument failed in court is what I'm saying.
That doesn't mean the court's correct. Anything that has deception is actually deemed void. Okay, so if they're being
But
deceitful
even
with their law, it's void.
the reason that argument was overturned, or sorry, the reason that argument did not work in Daryl Brooks's case is because actually that argument had failed in a prior case and had gone up to the appellate level, all the way up to the Supreme Court level, actually, and had been continuously overruled, or sorry, continuously upheld as the law does not mean that capital letters is a different entity than somebody with lowercase letters. So even if that were true, our current justice system does not recognize that argument.
So
So
what you're saying
with
is a man violated another man's rights. Go ahead.
um well, our current justice system doesn't recognize that as a right to identify as a separate entity simply because your name is spelled in all
Current.
caps.
Current, like a water current, because it's maritime law that they're practicing on land, right?
they're more than welcome to change the law just because we have a living, breathing constitution. However, I don't see anything coming up in the works. I don't see it being a split decision in the court. I don't see this being an issue that's highly debated. I don't think this is a benefit to society to allow people to differentiate a all caps letter version of their name versus a lowercase letter version of their name. So I don't see that changing, but but it could change in theory.
But
However, as of right
you're
now,
giving
our
opinion
current
though.
legal
That's not
system.
facts. You're speaking
No, no,
opinion.
no. This is all facts. Like it's
Okay.
fact that that's currently not true, and
Okay.
it's fact that it's possible to change, but then it's an opinion that it's unlikely to change. Um, and it's a fact that this is not currently being debated by any attorneys. It's a fact that it's not a split decision at any circuit level. Um, so when you hear these arguments used in court and they continually failed, and there's precedent that they failed at every single level, all the way up to the Supreme Court, all the way down to all of the.
You want me to tell you one that didn't fail?
Sure.
It's the definition of Indians. The Aboriginal inhabitants of North America. Frazee versus Spokane County, 29 Washington 278, 69, page 782. I was born here. I was here from the beginning. Okay? That makes me Aboriginal. Now, what the fuck does a law have to say to violate my God given rights when I was born? Okay? It's all dualistic. It's trickery. They changed our constitution. We have two different constitutions, and most people only know about the first one. Okay, we have a constitution of 1871, and we have a constitution of 1776. Okay, and then you got the Sestaki Trust 1666. Okay,
Hold on. We have a Constitution of 1776 and 1871.
yes.
Do you say? What's the 1871 Are you talking about?
You tell me. You practice law,
No,
right?
I'm very curious as to which constitution you're referring to. It
I'm
was made in
curious why there's two
1861.
constitutions. I'm curious why there's two constitutions. I'll tell you why, because it's dualistic. Like PayPal, they put the 2,500 for misinformation, right? They get the backlash. They say,
Uh,
"Oh, we're not going to do it," and then they turn around and they do it anyways. Okay, and that's how
can
law
we have
works.
Henry, the producer, research? You said
Oh yeah, I got a page for you.
1860,
Actually, I got about 4 or 5.
1871
Yep.
Constitution, please, and pull that up whenever he's able.
And then go
Um,
go ahead.
no, so I'm just going to wait for him to do that, and I'm sure he's doing that in the background. Okay, you're saying there's two constitutions. I must have missed that day of law school.
That must be deception
So
as well, right? Because the first Constitution said these certain rights shall not be infringed, right? So to turn
mhm.
around and make another one, that right there is deceit. That's deception within the law, which makes that void.
Sorry, repeat what you just said,
If
please.
the 1776 Constitution rights say that they shall not be infringed, and then
Okay.
another Constitution is passed in 1871, that is deception within the law, which means that it's void by law.
Okay. 1871.
And then you got the Magna Carta of 1215. You can't steal your neighbor's property,
Are
you
you
know?
talking about the Constitution of the German Empire?
I'm talking about all kinds of stuff. I could show you where it's all been deception since before. This has
No,
been a
but in
thing of
America, we
generations.
only have one constitution. We can agree that America only has one constitution,
I
correct?
can agree
So,
that the United States of America is a corporation and that the land of America is not. I can assure you of
okay.
that.
Is there any country that's not a corporation?
It just depends about their laws. I'm not saying I study the laws from all over
I'm
the
just
world, but I know
asking,
that I know what our
right?
founders built our land on, allegedly, right? And I know that
Okay.
all these things go back to the law of Scripture, all of it.
I'm just one question at a time, though. Can you name a country which is not considered a corporation?
Argentina, we're down
Why
in
is
South
Argentina not
America.
a corp?
because it's
South,
like a
all of South
what
America?
like third world countries. I don't think that they would be corporations because they're just contracting with other countries that are corporations. Okay, and then you got to think about
Well, there's
uh
failed
the
corporations.
like the foreign trade relations and all that. Then you got the CFR, Council of Foreign Relations. I mean, you know what's going on here. I believe you do.
I see, I don't, I see countries as countries and corporations as separate entities, right? We have different corporate entity structures. We have LLCs, we have corporations, we have partnerships, we have
You know that
limited
beautiful
partnerships, we have limited liability corporations.
you know that beautiful house that we got that tells the states what they can do, right? The district of where? Columbia, private,
Okay.
right? Private entity, corporation.
Well, I mean, it's a territory. I wouldn't say it's
It's
private
private.
territory. It's a public territory.
It's not part of the land of America. It built a corporation called the United, okay, with all capitals as well. All right,
Okay.
and let's see here. It comes down. I'm trying to tell you these things, okay? You got the Magna Carta of 1215. It prevents you from being able to take somebody's land, okay? This place was already populated before they came here, okay? Indians were already here. All right, there was already
I think we
things going
refer to
on.
them as Native Americans
I
now, but
am Indian, okay? Native American. All right, I'm Apache.
okay.
All right.
Oh, okay, great. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Okay, and then the
Do
12-7.
you know like what percent Apache you are? Like what
No,
side of your family?
no, because they made my family register me as white, whatever that is.
Who? Who's they?
You know, when the ship comes in, it's berthed at the dock, right?
So like the nurse at your mom's hospital
What
when
do
she
they
gave
do
birth?
when a child is born?
I think they cut the umbilical cord. Sometimes they spank
Paperwork.
it to
What do
make
they
sure
do
it
with paperwork?
cries. Usually, if the father is there, they'll ask him to sign it, and then they'll give the child their name via the birth certificate.
So they provide a birth certificate and ask your parents to sign it before you even have a say so, right? And then you're bought right in.
Mm-hmm.
You still don't see it?
I'm just gonna turn on a light really quick. Hold on one second. Um, no, I understand what you're saying. That like you're not agreeing to.
Oh,
Um,
I'm not giving opinion. I'm giving facts. I'm giving statutes and laws.
so I understand the facts that you are saying is the fact that a parent sign a birth certificate telling the government of your existence without your
Telling the who of
um,
what? Telling the who of what?
the government
What does that
of
word
your
mean? What's that word mean?
well, the government would be the
No,
entity,
it's two
the
words
group of
put together. It's
people.
two words put together. You know. What does the
So
word
that's
mean?
another thing that I find very interesting about the sovereign community is the picking apart of language, like the
No,
dissecting of
it's them
diction.
smashing them together and trying to make words that don't exist, okay? The word means govern and the word means mint and the word means mind, control or control of mind. You
Mm.
have to know these words. You practice legalese, right? Okay? And then you got to think about pharmakia, all right? Where do you want to go with this conversation? I'm telling you, I got the facts right here for you. All of them. You're under
Right.
brainwash and I can prove it.
And I am trying, I want you to, I think a lot of people think like I do. I would say most people think like I do. So I really
Sheeple?
want to
Do you mean sheeple?
understand.
Masses?
You're not going to encourage people to come to your side by insulting us,
I don't want
sir.
anybody on my
Don't
side. Check
You
this
don't
out.
want to convince people of your truth? I always want to convince people of my truth. I think that's human nature. Of what I believe is true, I try to convince people. So I'm giving you the opportunity to try to convince me and
Okay.
everybody
You're a
here
Juris
that
Doctor,
we are
right?
wrong.
You're a Juris Doctor,
Yeah.
right? Okay, what's that
Mm-hmm.
mean?
It means that I have my law degree. It means I went to law school. It means I spent too much money on
Okay,
a career that I really shouldn't have.
exactly.
It means I
Check
made a
this
lot of
out.
bad decisions.
It happens because we all wake up on our own time, you know. But anyways,
Mhm.
which means that you became a doctor through education, right?
I would doctor in the same way Jill Biden's a doctor, but sure.
You're saying that you gained this knowledge by education, right?
Yeah.
Which education is indoctrination, right?
It can be.
It
Like,
is,
and I'm
right?
not
Do we know who funds the
sometimes
schools? Oh, it ain't sometimes. It's all times. We know who runs the schools. Okay? You know what's up,
it's so
okay?
funny
So
because
you
I
got
actually disagree with you less than you think we do. I agree that the schools are a lot of indoctrination, and I did fight against a lot of the indoctrination
that's
while I
beautiful.
was in law school. And so I understand that there's a lot of indoctrination in school. That being said, there's also some education going on too. Like you
Okay.
also learn some things.
Well, it is education, also indoctrination. That's what education
Okay.
is. Okay. Now,
Not always. I
uh,
taught math and
the
physics.
same
I
people
never
that
brought up
fund public
politics.
schools, right? The same people that fund the schools fund the prisons. Okay. And you can look at the meals. You can ring the bell. You got teachers. You got COs. You got principals. You got wardens. Okay. Oprah Winfrey is
Okay.
heavily invested in this. Okay, which is
Well, she's
a
a
quote
liberal.
unquote. Okay, so when you take prisoners, right, from reception and you put them on a bus and you send them somewhere else to get off that bus and get on another bus to go to another quote unquote facility, right? What is that? Oh, and you get a number as well, a cattle number.
Okay. Well, first of all, prison is very different. It's a very unique space of law. It's a heavily argued section of law. That is a section of law where there's a lot of splits in the
Do you
circuit.
know the
Um,
Do you know the most requested and highest demanded book by celebrities and prisoners is The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene? Did you know that?
well, I really don't trust celebrities with much. Actually, I think I
Or
might have
inmates,
that book.
right? Or inmates, right?
I think I might have that book
That's good. Anyways,
given to me by a crazed, somewhat celebrity. Yeah.
yeah, you see?
So it's so funny.
And then
Yeah.
you think about,
But
go ahead.
celebrities are not people to aspire to be, nor people whose mindsets you should acquire or like attempt
They're shiny idols
pursue.
that people worship, like the Kardashians.
Right. You shouldn't worship the Kardashians. See, that's another thing that we agree on. We shouldn't worship the Kardashians, and schools are full of indoctrination. A lot of things we agree upon. Things that we disagree upon, though, and one thing that I find very interesting about the sovereign community is that they recognize that the laws exist and that there is a government power B that exists. They understand that there's a jail system that exists. They understand that if they break these laws, even if they think those laws are unjust, that they will go to prison, and yet they still do that. For instance,
Where
a
do
lot of
people
people who
go to find God? Where do they go? In
church, temple,
prison?
mosque,
Prison?
prison, church.
Where'd they send the Messiah? Where was the
I,
book of Revelation
I'm
wrote at?
sure.
Where did John write Revelation at?
Right,
Okay?
there's been a lot of great people who went to prison. Martin Luther King went to prison, right? Plenty of great, wonderful thought leaders have gone to prison. I'm not saying that everybody who goes to prison is bad. I'm just saying that there's a lot of unique legal issues on how to treat prisoners and what rights they are stripped of once they are given the status of felon. And there's a lot of debate over that. A lot of people are saying, why are we stripping felons of their Second Amendment rights? They should have just as much of a right to defend
Shall
themselves.
not be infringed. That's a violation of your
Right? So you
constitutional
probably believe
rights.
that. So you believe, like, for instance, if a felon uh, shoots up a school, maybe not native, they'd probably be in jail forever. But if like a felon is convicted of shooting somebody and it's only second degree murder and they go
Shall
away for
not be
30 years.
infringed. Shall not be
Okay.
infringed.
All right. I mean, actually, there was a case in Prescott
It's Prescott.
where it's actually Prescott. It's spelled like Prescott,
I used to
but
stay
it's
in
pronounced
Bullhead.
like
You hear me?
Prescott.
I used to stay in
Oh, very
Bullhead.
cool. Yeah. Okay. I worked at the Bullhead Court a couple of times, actually many times. So yeah, I definitely know the Bullhead area. Very nice. Um, Well, there's a case recently where this guy went around, he had a gun, and when he was young, he was bit by a dog, like traumatized. And so every time a dog came up to him, he would shoot it. And he started going around neighborhoods shooting dogs. And he was locked up and he was going through trial. And he was released on bail. And they never took away his rights to his weapons because that's how
Because
Arizona works. They won't take away
it's a
the
mental
rights
health
from your weapons.
disability. That's a disorder within self.
Yeah,
That's, you know,
then he shot himself. He did kill himself
that's
with a
terrible.
gun. So
That's
I'm just
terrible.
saying, that's kind of why there is. Whereas in California, as soon as you're accused of a crime, they take away all of your weapons, even if the crime is not gun related. So there's a split in the circuit there as to how we treat prisoners, whereas there's not a split in the circuit for a lot of these sovereign arguments, which is why I'm very confused. For instance, a lot of sovereigns believe that the states have no right to give driver's licenses. Do you believe that states
There's
have
no
the rights to give?
obligation. It's not a right, and there's no obligation to. You have the right to travel, and you have the right to transport your property. Okay. The only reason if you would ever need a quote unquote driver's license is if you're
Mhm.
transporting goods for profit. And goods could
So
also mean if you're transporting people for profit, like a cab, okay? And it goes right back to the ships.
So if I'm like 13 years old and I wanted to like grab a beer from the fridge and go for a drive, is that legal according to you? Like am I constitutionally guaranteed the right to do that?
I believe that there is policies, right, which don't trump the law. There's policies that are put in place that quote unquote we the people actually did vote on, right? Like things like that. That's not cool. Though you can go
What's
die
not
and be a
cool?
soul dyer, right?
What's not cool?
At
Drinking and
18, but you
driving
can't have a
being
beer till you're 21, right? You can
okay.
go
So
die at 18, but
if I'm 21 and I have never driven a car before and I just want to take my my friend's car for a joyride and she lets me, can I just drive? Can I just go drive without a license? Do I have a constitutional right according to you?
the best way I can explain this is if you want to expire yourself early, you have the right to.
What do you mean?
Well, that would result in you expiring yourself early.
You mean I could crash and die?
I mean, if you have no experience, it wouldn't be a logical decision. And then it goes
Well,
back into
if
it
I
goes back to
wanted
scripture.
to,
It goes back to scripture. I told you law is based on scripture. There's what's called the
that's
age of
not what I'm
accountability.
asking. What I'm asking is if I were driving and I were driving safe, but I get pulled over because maybe my tail light is out or something, and the cop noticed to ask for driver's license and registration, and I go, oh,
Yes, you are protected by the
so I
Constitution.
would go to
I
court
don't
and
agree
win.
with it, but you are protected by the Constitution.
So if would I go to court and would I win?
I can't answer that for you. I've never done that.
But that's the thing. So a lot of people in your community believe things are constitutionally
I
protected,
believe
but
they
they
took my Second
recognize
Amendment
that
before I
they'll
was.
lose in court.
I
Go
recognize that
ahead.
they took my 2A before I was even old enough to have a 2A by their law, right? Though the Constitution does not have a, there is no age with the 2A, okay? But by law, right, they put law in place, which means, oh, you can get these types when you're this age, and you can get these types when you're this age, right? You know what I'm talking about. Like
So
certain
you
places
think like any aged person should be allowed to have a gun? Like a
allow
child should be. Yeah, do you
allowing a
think like a
right.
2 year old, do you think like a 2 year old has like a constitutional right to a gun? Or a
So what you're
3 year old?
saying is you believe that a 2 year old or a 3 year old does not have that
I'm
right because
asking you.
I'm gonna
I'm
explain it. I'm
asking
gonna
you.
explain it to you. I'm gonna explain it to you. So you believe that they shouldn't be able to have that by their God given rights or their constitutional rights because they're not old enough to be logical to make intelligent decisions regarding their amendment, right?
Yeah,
This is
I would
what
say the
we
average
both
three year
agree on
old
this,
is
right?
not old enough to operate a
Exactly.
gun.
And I
Yes.
completely 100% agree with you. And that's exactly why
Okay.
I completely agree that,
Three things we agree on.
yes, and that's why I completely agree that it is not lawful to sign a baby into a registered contract because they're not old enough to make logical, intelligent decisions at that point. It's the
So
same.
just in the same way that your parents get to make decisions for you, such as not handing you a gun, not allowing you to go out at night, maybe which friends you're allowed to see, your parents get to decide to sign that sign your birth certificate for you, right?
Just
Don't
like they can sign for you to get married early, they can sign for you to get
they actually can in
firearms
some
when you're young.
states?
Yeah, and they can
Yeah, they
actually
can.
sign for
And
you
they
to
can
get
sign for you
firearms.
to drive young. Like I'm
Yep,
pretty sure 13 in some states.
it's all
Yep.
kind of
So
stuff.
yeah. So your parents do have the right to make legal decisions for you when you're a child, is what I'm trying to say, which would include the right to sign that birth certificate. Yeah.
I don't believe that they have the right to sign the birth certificate because you're not informed that you are then presented as a corporation. The identity that was
But just
assigned
like
to
when
you.
you're a child and you don't understand a lot of the legal decisions that your parents make for you,
Do what?
they get to make. So when you're a child, you don't understand almost any of the legal decisions or medical decisions that your parents have a legal right to make for you. Wouldn't that include, such as not letting you drive at a young age, such as not letting you go to a friend's house, such as they get to make a lot of these decisions for you, legal and medical, up until your age of 18. So what's different about signing a birth certificate?
I'll tell you what's different is because you are not informed throughout the first 18 years of the
That's the same for
contract that you
every
were signed
other.
in. No,
Okay,
because
that's the
I
same
mean,
for every legal and medical decision you make for the first 18 years.
but who's
You don't
ever
they
going to
don't have to
inform?
inform
But
you.
who's ever going to inform us that we're signed into a contract the day that we're birthed at the dock? Who's going to inform us?
Well,
The indoctrination doesn't. You became a doctor through indoctrination. Do you understand that?
I really don't think we should tell the audience that I'm a doctor because I think that would confuse people, and I don't want anyone to get the impression that I'm a doctor because I'm not. I have a JD. That being said, um,
Okay, so you're a doctor, you have education privileges or license, a degree that you gain through indoctrination by being brainwashed.
well, I don't believe I was brainwashed. I did a very good job fighting against the brainwashing. But I think I did receive education that was not brainwashing. For instance, civil procedure. There's really no politics in that. Rules of evidence. Very little politics in that, and my professor was wonderful. Professional responsibilities. Same professor as evidence. Wonderful. Very straightforward. Con law, however, very political, very indoctrination-y. Mass incarceration, that was literally just an indoctrination class. So you could tell which classes are giving you substance and which classes are literally just trying to indoctrinate you. It's not even like, it's a kind of a joke. It's you could tell which one is which.
Are you saying that it's dualistic? It uses a fork tongue? It's deceptive? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that some classes indoctrinate you and other classes teach you, and it's relatively easy to distinguish the two.
Are you ready?
Rights versus responsibility. I don't know. Do you want to answer that one? Because I don't quite know what she means by that.
I can only give you an
And
opinion.
Witchy Nikki and I just talked today. She is a lovely lady who is going to go far in life, and I wish her the best with everything. So, rights versus what was it? You want to bring that comment
Responsibilities.
back? Yeah, rights versus responsibilities. So, you think there's like you have maybe a right to do something, but because the law says one thing, you have a responsibility to follow the law. Maybe that's what she's saying. Like you have a responsibility to your family to make sure you don't get arrested, even if you think that the law is unconstitutional.
I think that they're both relevant, but I think that it's necessary to stand on your rights. But and if you're able to respond, then you should be response able.
So this is what Witchy Nikki says. She says this has to do with the birth certificate. So tell you it's not a contract with a child, but with the citizen's parents, and you can rescind by not signing this into the system as an adult. So yeah, that's true, right? Your parents have all legal control over you until you're 18, but as soon as you turn 18, right, you could renounce your United States citizenship.
Who's gonna tell you? That's exactly what I'm saying. Who's gonna tell you?
Wouldn't you know if you were like if you were in the United States, right? You either have a birth certificate, which you used for enrolling into kindergarten, for
I
getting your
didn't.
driver's
My parents did.
license, for, okay, but for getting your driver's license, for registering to vote. Like, there's so many things that I'm using. I had to print my birth certificate today to apply for the Florida bar. So there's so many things you have to do in which you need your birth certificate for. So you would find out if you lacked a birth certificate. That's
Oh,
for certain.
so you needed to provide your contract to go into another contract, is what you're saying.
Yeah, many times you need to have proof of residency, proof of citizenship in order to
Oh,
enter
that proof of what?
into
Proof of what? Citizenship.
citizenship. Yeah.
Who's required a citizenship?
So anyone who wants to gain
What
access to the rights of citizens in America needs
what
to
rights are
have proof of
those?
citizenship. So, right, while the Constitution does have some rights that cover immigrants, but those rights are not as strong. And there's certain rights that are in the American Constitution that are only for American citizens. And so there's those rights.
So what applies to the Aboriginal? The people that were born here and been here since the first day they ever came here to life.
Yeah.
Aboriginal.
So are
Okay.
you talking about people who were literally just born here, like me and you, who, like, my parents were both here, and then so
Exactly. Or maybe
so you would
you?
classify me as an Aboriginal?
Yes.
Is that what you're?
Yeah, because you were here
All
since
right.
the
I'm
beginning
not
of
going to
your time.
classify myself as that, but okay. But I don't think that's how legally people. I don't. Do we even use the term Aboriginal anymore? I haven't really heard that
That's the
term.
legal and lawful term of an Indian. Somebody that since their time first started, they were already on this land, okay?
Okay.
And on the
Yeah.
land, but practicing maritime law. That's dualistic. It's a forked tongue, okay? My people shall
Okay.
fail
Why
for
don't
lack of
you explain
knowledge.
this maritime law thing? Because that's another argument that Daryl Brooks attempted in court, and that other sovereigns have attempted in court that has failed at every single level, which is the goldfinch flag with the fringe and all of that being a symbol of maritime law and not part of the courts.
Oh, I don't care
Can you
about none of
explain
that.
that?
I don't care about none
Oh,
of that. Law
okay,
is the
but it's
law of
brought
the
up.
land, the law of the air, the law of the water, right? Water,
Okay.
currency, river current, the bank. When they took everything, all the little diamonds and everything, your higher up families, right? They went and put it on the river bank, okay? And money flows like water, currency, current, all right? Jordan Maxwell broke all this stuff down, all right? And that's the whole thing. We're on the land. That's the law of the land. That's supposed to be not the law of the water, not Admiral Maritime law. It's how do you can't do both, and that's why the Sesta Key of 1666 is so relevant because they declared everyone lost at sea. So until you claim who you are, the living being, they're collecting your assets if these assets exist.
Okay. I still haven't been able to pull up the 1871 Constitution. Okay, let's see.
It's probably a deep dive, but you
The
ain't even
act.
gotta stop there. You can keep that. We got more for you.
Well, it's so funny because when I pull up, okay, the it looks like it's not. Are you sure the constitutional change of 1871
Not a change.
affected?
Not a change. A whole separate one.
Okay, the United States Constitution's 1871. This is a lot of these sites are not reputable.
I told you, you
Okay,
could
so
take
there
that and study
was
it
it
later.
under the Act of 1870? No, because I want to know what you're referring to. You keep talking about there's two constitutions.
There's two of
Um,
everything. There's two identities. There's the living man, the human being, okay? The manifested form of light, and then there's the corporation, the corpse, the
mhm.
straw man, legalese, trickery. I have multiple
Okay,
notes, but I don't have I can't pull up the information right now. Like I said, you can sit on that. I got more for you. You want to keep going?
I have a personal question, and you
Uh,
feel free not to answer it. Have you had any negative interactions with the law, such as like a DUI or a speeding ticket, or just any negative interaction with the law?
I have before.
When did you use these arguments in
I used
court?
those arguments before I was the age of accountability, and they recognized it, but I did not know enough about it. But they definitely recognized it and they questioned it.
Did you win?
No, but I did not know what I was doing. I was just presenting certain things that I knew at that age. I was like, I don't know, I was like maybe 14, 15, and they recognized it and they questioned
Is
it, but I
there
did
a
not know enough.
single sovereign that you know
Yep,
who's gone to
yep,
court
yep,
that you've seen the
yep,
documentation of? Because I
yep.
have, okay, that you can pull up right now. That
No.
that you could show to everybody else. Okay, so that we
I
can't establish in
Oh,
this
okay.
moment a
So because
single
you can't
piece of
see,
evidence.
so what you're saying is because you can't see God, that means he doesn't exist. That's what you're
Well, we're
saying.
not talking about God right now. We're talking about like
Well,
a
these are
paper
God-given rights that we're
trails
talking about,
legal
though. But
system.
we're talking about God-given rights.
Mm-hmm. We are
Hmm.
talking, sure. Okay. Yeah, that may be true, but there's still a paper trail. So, like every argument
I
that
don't
has
have
been
nothing for you.
presented,
No. All I
right?
brought you today
And
was notes, and they're good
and
notes.
well, and you're more than welcome to if you want, you could take pictures of them and put them on your screen. You could put them on your screen however you want. You could send them to my producer who will put them on the screen. Send them to me. I'll send them to the producer who will put them on. However you want us to get the
Okay, what
notes
do you
on the
got?
screen.
What do you
I'll.
got? Drop some gems. What do you got for me?
Well, I'm not trying to prove anything. I believe that the sovereign argument has never worked, and like one way that I can show this is looking at the Darrell Brooks case. I know those prosecutors had gone through and came up with a litany of sovereign cases all the way up to the Supreme Court level, showing that every single one of them has failed and one that they have never succeeded. In fact, they pulled up every sovereign case that they could
And what
and
did
showed
he
without it.
identify as when he first came into the quote unquote courtroom and opened up
Well, the
the
thing is, he
floodgate to
said,
as king step forward?
well, he said that he's not Darrell Brooks that's identified in the paperwork because the paperwork had all caps, which is one of the arguments that you brought up.
Did he have his contract with him?
You mean his birth certificate?
Exactly.
I don't think he needs to have his birth certificate with him when they're able to identify him without his birth certificate. And it's not him who's required to prove his identity; it's the state, and the state requires
Okay, so what you
met
mean
their
is that
burden of proving his identity beyond a reasonable doubt.
okay, meaning that the state is actually in fact the debtor and the human being as as the living being is actually the secured party creditor for the trust, right?
Can you repeat that?
Meaning if the burden is on them, the burden of proof or whatever you want to say,
The
right?
burden of proof is
That
on the
makes
prosecution.
exactly,
Mhm.
which makes the state the debtor, which means that the human being, the manifested form of light
Well, not a
being,
financial debtor, maybe a debtor of evidence. Maybe they are
period, debtor,
in debt for
period.
evidence, but then they provided evidence, and so then
Okay,
they're out of debt.
but if they're the debtor, that means that there has to be a creditor, which is in fact the other party, right? In any scenario.
I would imagine the court would be the creditor. The court is due that evidence. Or maybe you could
But the
say
court
the
works with the
jury.
state, the prosecutor. And,
Well, no, I would say the court would be the neutral party and the state is one party and then one party on one side of the opposition, and then you have the defense on the other. And sometimes both the state and the defense are paid for by the same entity. So
Did you just
payment is
drop some
not
gems?
okay. That's not a gem. For instance, being a public defender, I would be paid by the same
It's a
entity
breach
as the
right there. That's a
prosecution.
breach right there.
Yeah, that's not a breach. So you have things called the China wall, where you can have an attorney working in the same office as another attorney, in which they need to keep uh, information separate, and where it would otherwise be a breach. But even that one entity could get the finances, even though it would be a breach, but for the China wall. However, in this case, it's the exact opposite. You don't even need a China wall. It's just one entity that is funding two organizations, knowing that those two organizations will come to opposite sides, so that somewhere in the middle there will be truth, because we have an adversarial system in the United States. So
Are you saying that the left, right, same bird? Is that what you're saying? It's a paradigm?
no, I'm saying that it's an adversarial system.
I'm
And so
saying,
when you
did you
have
hear me
two
politically?
adversaries, yeah, I did hear you. I just disagreed with your assessment of the difference of labeling prosecution and defense as same wing, same of the two wings of the same bird, just like Republicans and Democrats, or whatever you're trying to
Exactly. It's
say.
all dualistic. Everything is. Law and legalese are two different things. Legalese practices policy, okay? We fund these buildings that we have to have our rights stripped just to walk into, okay? When the policy actually applies to the people that work for the policy, which are citizens, okay?
Okay. So I have a question. If these arguments even if you believe these arguments are 1,000% true, which you clearly do, and many other people do as well, if they never work in court, what point is there? Is the point to try to get our country to recognize those rights eventually? Wouldn't you need to be voting and be a part of the
Do you
uh,
honestly think even has any relevance? Do you think that you make a difference? Do you think that your opinion matters? These are facts.
excuse me?
These are facts. We're not talking about opinions, These are facts. These are laws that are put in place to protect our rights. And they're
Right.
being
But the
walked on every
fact
day.
is,
All of them.
okay, but the fact is our current judicial system is not the
How
system
do you
that
establish
you
how do you establish jurisdiction?
okay. Well, it depends. So, are you talking about for a civil lawsuit or a criminal lawsuit?
General.
Well, there's no general. You're civil or criminal.
Let's do both.
Well, there's civil. Okay, so if you were to do the civil law, if you want to establish jurisdiction, you have to show personal jurisdiction. You have to show subject matter jurisdiction. So to show personal jurisdiction, you have to show that the defendant had a certain number of minimum contacts, or was home to the state, or was somehow the state has personal jurisdiction over them. And then they have to have subject matter jurisdiction. So that means if you want to file in federal court in a specific state, you would have to show both diversity between the plaintiffs and the defendants, and you would also have to show the minimum amount of controversy, which is $75,000, and a penny. You have to show that in a minimum. So that's how you would get subject matter jurisdiction.
And
And then
that's
you could
through a
also
trust
have
bond, right? That's through trust law,
what?
right? Well, where are you coming
What?
up with all this money? How you going to present that?
So okay, so the $75,000. So you just have to allege that the defendant has caused you a grievance worth $75,000. So for
And what's
instance,
the legal
let's
term of
say,
allege?
well, okay, let me give an example. So let's say I'm a citizen of state A, you're a citizen of state C, and we're in state B, okay? And we're both driving and I crash into you, okay? And now you want to file a lawsuit in federal court in state B.
So I want to
You would be able to
contract
show
with you.
well, no, you're filing a lawsuit against me, a civil lawsuit against me.
But which is still business though. It's still contract.
I wouldn't say a business person feels like they're entering a contract when somebody sues them civilly.
So you don't feel like if a business person is being quote unquote sued by another individual for for a debt, okay? Which debt collect, okay? It's still business, it's still
Mm-hmm.
contract, okay? There's no law that says that you even have to show up. Even if you're summons, you summons dead people, okay? Not a living human being.
Well, I don't.
So how are you going to
Have you
establish
ever summoned a dead
jurisdiction?
person? Okay.
How are you going to
So I
establish
just explained
jurisdiction?
how you establish jurisdiction in a civil suit, and then you would have a different procedure for a criminal suit. It's actually much simpler for criminal suit. Basically, wherever the crime occurred is the
Enlighten me.
jurisdiction for the criminal suit. Well, like if you commit a crime in Alabama, right, then California doesn't have jurisdiction over that crime, even if you're a citizen of California. So for that was actually a really interesting issue that came up in the last true crime video I did. The woman uh, wanted to kill her mother and planned with her boyfriend how to kill the mom, and they planned on going vacation in Bahamas. It wasn't the Bahamas. I'm just going to say the Bahamas, some other country, and she killed her mom there. And the United, and then when she was sentenced in that other country, she only got like two. She was sentenced to 10 years, but she only served like 2 years. Then she was extradited to the United States. And now the United States is trying to prosecute her for murdering her mom, but the United States doesn't have jurisdiction over the crime. So they're not going to prosecute her for murdering her mom. Instead, they're going to prosecute her for conspiracy to murder her mom because
That's
she
still
committed
double
the act of
jeopardy, though.
conspiracy. No, it's not, because it's a completely different crime and it's a completely different jurisdiction. So you can't have double jeopardy with two separate jurisdictions. And this is a completely separate crime. You can't have double jeopardy with a completely separate crime. It's not even a lesser included. I mean, it would.
All right, let me tell you like this. I got a buddy that's
Mm,
doing 116 years for first degree, right?
that's not good.
In Illinois. Okay, and
Mm.
I guess what happened, what the
Is
report
he a
said.
sovereign?
I don't think
Is he a
he. I
sovereign?
don't. I don't think he ever claimed his status any which way, which means he's still stuck in that contract. You know, at the birth date.
Mm.
But I'm
Okay.
just trying to. We're talking about jurisdiction. That's the only reason why I'm bringing this up. Okay. And he was on the run before he got caught, and he was shooting at the cops in Tennessee. So I guess after he does his 116 years, he has to go to Tennessee to do time for guns, even though it's all one spree. How does that work?
Well, you can have so he shot. Where did he shoot at the police officers, and what was he being charged with in each jurisdiction? So what was he being charged with in Tennessee?
Well, the news said in Tennessee that he allegedly shot at the police and then, accident or whatever. But this was while he was on the run from Illinois for murder.
So
Like, I
he
guess,
committed two different crimes in two
but it's
different
all one.
states. So
It's
both
all one.
states. Yeah, that doesn't matter. In fact, you could commit one crime like on the border of a state and both states can get jurisdiction. And that has happened. I've actually seen that happen before. So yeah, you could have crazy scenarios like that.
So
And here's one thing that I agree with you that is messed up. The state can get jurisdiction. So let's say you get charged for murder and you get tried in a state court and you're found or you're found not guilty.
and then they
Is
can
that what you're
charge you
saying?
again with the other one. Yeah, I know.
The
It's bogus.
federal,
That's
yeah, then the
bogus,
federal
though.
court. It is I agree that's some bogus. But the point being they're two separate jurisdictions,
You
so
mean
it's not
dualistic?
considered
Fork
double
tongue, right?
jeopardy. And just I just want to I know that you know what double jeopardy is because you mentioned it before I did, but just for my audience, in case you don't know what double jeopardy is when you get charged with the same crime twice by the same jurisdiction. So, like if you get charged for murder, you're found not guilty, the same jurisdiction can't then try the murder again. Like, let's say they found more evidence or you admit it after trial. They can't retry you with the
Here,
same
let me give you
crime.
another example. Okay? I got another buddy.
Okay.
He got 20 for first degree, right, in Illinois. And the
You have
minimum.
two friends
Oh,
who
I got
have
all kinds of
first
friends that
degree
are all
murder.
in prison. Yeah, it's all good. I grew up with these people
I
too.
can
Check
see
it out
why the
though.
FBI is after you a little. Okay, go ahead.
So the minimum for first degree in the state of Illinois is 20, all the way up to life, and there's no death sentence, no penalty, right?
Okay.
Okay, so he got
Hmm.
his minimum because he's never been in trouble before, right? 20 years. He goes to
That's
prison
very nice.
at a young age, right? And
Hmm.
when you catch a first degree, you have 3 years parole that you have to do mandatory supervised release, quote unquote parole, when you get out for, right? And he was
Hmm.
sentenced to 20 years, and now they want to. They're telling him that he's got to do 3 years on MSR, which was not in his plea agreement.
Did he do his entire sentence served, or did he get out on early release?
I don't know what happened with that.
If you get out
He's
on
still
early release, most of the time you have to serve the rest of your sentence on parole,
he
at
is
least in Arizona.
well no, the thing is he got 20, he has to do 20 at 100%. You have to do 100% on a first degree.
Okay.
And he was at like 2 years left or something like that. And he was fighting that and he took it back to the Supreme Court. I don't know what happened.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know what the legal issue
Do you
with that
think that's
case. I don't
lawful
know
or
the
legal?
state. Yeah, probably. I mean, I have no idea,
Well,
but
if you got to
I'm
do 20 years and
assuming.
then 3 years on parole, which is considered still property of the state, that means you're doing 23 years when your plea agreement was 20 years.
I get that parole is hard and probation is difficult for some people, but um, yeah, once you commit a crime, you lose a lot of rights. So yeah,
So a
I
man
can't
could
see
take
why
so a man could
why the
take a
state
man's right.
wouldn't be give if they commit a crime, if they
So
violate the law, they are more than well. Then the country is allowed to take away rights from
so
people, and that
so
is in the
basically
Constitution.
so basically if a man's who gives authority to one man to take the rights away from another man? How? How's that? Where? How? Where? How's it lawful?
Well,
Not legal, lawful.
why don't you just explain the distinction between legal and lawful?
Because legal is trickery and it goes back to the straw man contract, your corporation. Lawful goes back to the being.
So you think our current laws are on the books is trickery?
I think the way that they
What do you
are
think of attorneys?
I think the way that they are manipulated can be trickery.
What do you think of attorneys in general?
You got good ones, you got bad ones. Nobody needs representation though.
So do you think people who are part of the bar are automatically corrupt?
Tell me what a bar is.
Like part of the Bar or Association of Arizona, part of the Bar Association of
What does the
whatever
word
state you're
bar
in.
mean?
Well, I actually don't know like the etymology
But
of
you went to school for
bar.
this. You don't know what a bar is, but you signed into contract with them?
Well, I just because I don't know what do you think bar means?
I'm asking you because I think that that's you using your citizenship to contract business with a bar that associates with mind control.
Mind control. We associate with mind control. How do we associate with
You know
mind
what that
control?
word means. Those words.
I know what mind control means.
You
Yeah,
know
I
what
do know
mint?
what mind
You know
control
what
means.
mint means too, and you also know what it means to govern yourself as a sovereign. Why would you need to be governed by
Okay.
a king? We promise to be a good king, but we promise to be a king.
How
You
many
know?
people in America do you think like you do?
How many people are not brainwashed? I don't know. You'd have
Yeah,
to
how many
probably look up
people in
the
America are
statistics.
not sheeple? I tried. I have looked at the statistics and I have been unable to find it because you guys are such an underground group because
There's
basically
no group.
every American. Okay, such a. You have to recognize that people who think like you are put into a category,
I
yes.
recognize like-minded individuals and free thinkers.
Okay. How many people in America do you think are like-minded individuals? And you do recognize that that's a difficult statistic to find because the government of the United States basically recognizes you guys as terrorists.
I don't fucking give a fuck about that shit. The Bible comes first. God comes
Okay,
before anything.
I'm just trying to gather how many of them, how many of you there are.
I can only answer this if you can only answer two questions that may or may not, you might think that they might be personal, but they're actually relevant. Are you religious in any matter at all?
Sure.
Okay. Does that come with a holy scripture?
Well, I'm Jewish.
It's part of the scripture.
Okay, yeah, the Torah.
Hmm. And that's actually where most of your rights are actually found in that as well. The only difference is our antichrist will be your Christ. It's the only
Excuse me?
difference. A Christian's antichrist.
I don't think any
It all
Jew
matters. I'm gonna
believes
tell you right now.
Jesus was the Antichrist.
No, 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 no. Jewish people, from my understanding, are still waiting for the Messiah, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And according to the New Testament, which does apply to me, it doesn't have to apply to you. Okay.
Okay.
There'll be a man that comes here, and there'll be a man that's built
Hmm.
here. And the man that's built here is a system that we're finding ourselves stuck in right now. It's
Okay. So
dualist.
back to
It's
my
all.
question. How many people do you think like you? Oh, my poor baby. My poor dog is hungry.
I think
I'm listening.
to a percentage, I think maybe 20%.
20, you think 20% of Americans think like you do?
I think that's being a little lenient.
So you think one out of every five people that I meet on the street would identify as a sovereign?
To an extent.
Wow, that's a lot. It's a lot of people. Um, all right. Well, I just kind of want to go. Is there anything that you wanted to tell people? Is there anything that you wanted to say about your belief system that you think is misunderstood?
I can just go down all these things, and your producer can take them down, and you can go down and find the information yourself. But understand that the Bible says, "My people will fail for lack of knowledge." So I can only give you information. You have to know.
Okay, you have given us, your opinion on things, and I know that you say that you've also given us facts, and sure, I agree that you've also given us some facts. Um, I don't think a lot of people are going to go, reading a bunch of stuff. I think people just want to come here and understand the general understanding of your ideology. Like if you were in the elevator with someone and they were like, quick, try to make me think like you do, what would you say to that person?
I would say the Charter of the Forest from 1217. We are all one.
Okay, what if they have no idea what you're referring to in that sentence?
I would tell them do their own research.
Who's Jordan Maxwell?
A beautiful soul that's no longer with us today. He was, I don't know, I guess he passed away. I don't know. He was a guy that I used to research a lot, and he breaks down a lot of things, which law happens to be one of them because law is an art. It's not an indoctrination. It's not an education. It's an art. I can paint a pretty picture too.
All right. Well, I want to open up the chats to questions. So this is a very good question. Why do you think Paul and slaves refused to come up for this interview?
I really shouldn't speak on another man. I can only give you opinion. What do you have to
Yeah,
offer
please
him
give your
when you're
opinion.
what do you have to offer him when you don't agree with his beliefs?
What did I have to offer you?
I'm still waiting. I told you I want knowledge, not money.
So you don't think do you think I offered you any knowledge?
No,
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry that you were left empty-handed then.
it's okay. This is for you to you must be able to learn, unlearn, and also relearn, because you're being you're taught everything backwards, and when you do research, you're actually searching backwards as well, because reality is a pushed out version of our perception inside. Okay, as above, so below, as within, so without. To interview means you want to view within. Okay, and so when you go within, what do you see? You see the back, right? Which means you got to go back. Where do you go back? You go back to when you were birthed at the dock, right? And then you were signed into a contract without your consent. Go ahead, drop some
Would
gems.
you agree that Jordan Maxwell is a man who believes that the system we are now under was all admiralty maritime law, and that the most harsh law and it's the most harsh law and it's by corporations or courts or rations?
I
See, that's the
believe,
thing. The sovereigns do a lot of this like diction stuff where they take a word and they pick it apart into two separate words and then look at the etymology of two separate words and claim that that's the
well, they
meaning
smash them
of the
together.
word.
They
Is it
smash them
possible that
together.
it's just a completely different word using
Well, let me ask you this: the
the
Ten
same letters as
Commandments were written
others?
on tablets, right? Allegedly written on
Yes.
tablets, right? Okay, and then
Mm-hmm.
people also, and that's knowledge, right? Allegedly.
Okay, what's your point?
And then we put our knowledge, allegedly, onto different forms of tablets today, right? Our technological tablets, right? But just because both of them things are tablets, it does not mean that the original ones that were tablets in stone are not tablets. Those are still tablets as well.
Okay, what's your point though?
My point is, you can break down everything in this reality to seven laws, and there's seven universal laws, and one of them is everything has relevance. So the law of the land, the law of the air, and the law of the water all have relevance.
Alrighty. Well, okay. Do we have any more questions for this man? One person in chat, my friend Paul Crispy, wants to know if you are single.
I am.
Have you always been single? Is his actual question.
I was actually married for over 10 years, and I chose to walk away when I woke up to this lie.
So you walked away from your wife when you came to these revelations about the government?
I understand what you're saying, and it's a fourth industrial revelation, and it's a technological Tower of Babel. And if you don't know about the great vowel shift of the 1200s, you will never understand, overstand what the words even mean when you spell them, quote unquote, spell them out of your mouth.
Yes, I
We
am
were
so dumb.
lied to
So you
about.
left
No,
your
no,
wife
no. You're
after
not dumb.
10
You're not
years?
dumb. You're seeking intelligence, which means that you have an interest in knowledge. So you're not dumb.
Oh, thank you. So you left your wife after 10 years because of this ideology?
It's more than just an ideology. Okay, these things are facts, and it's not just law. Law is just one thing. There's a kraken. Okay, do you know what an octopus
Did you
is?
have kids with your wife?
Nope.
Oh, that's good.
Check this out. The octopus is the only species on the planet that cannot be identified. It is technically an alien. It has 8 tentacles. Each one of them tentacles is truth. Okay, you got religion, you got spiritual, you got law, you got audit, you got prepper, you got etc. You know what I'm saying? And this is what's called the truth. You cannot just find all of the truth as one. So that's why I like to tell people stand in your truth, right? And what I mean by stand in your truth is the facts, which is truth that cannot be argued, and then there's your beliefs, which makes it your truth.
Okay. My friend Ruru wants to know, what are your thoughts on MGTOW? I don't even know what that is. Do
I
you know
don't
what that
either.
is?
No.
maybe she can, inform us what
Enlighten.
that is, enlighten both of us, and then ask again. Uh,
Do you know
can
who the
you
light
go?
bearer is,
Can
right?
you explain? Can you explain the tentacles of truth a little bit more?
I just told you.
Well,
It's all paradigms. It's all
all right.
distractions. Everything is.
Um, did you ever try to have kids? One of my friends, Sheppy God, wants to know. Oh, what do you think about men going their own way? What
Their
do you think
own
about
way.
men? Like men being like, I'm out of this relationship, girl. I'm doing
Well,
my own thing.
I think there was that old Fleetwood Mac song or something like that. You can go your
You
own
go
way.
your
Yeah.
own way. Go
You have the
your
right.
own way. Yeah,
You got the
I'm a
right
bad
to.
singer, really bad singer.
You're good.
Oh, what? But it is a good song, good song.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, did you ever try to have kids? Sheppy God OG wants to know
I'm
in
not.
10 years of marriage.
I'm not finding the relevance with that law, but
Well, I'm just going to the comment section and looking at what
did
my
I ever
people want to
try
know.
to? I mean, yeah.
Has
But
she, do you know if your ex-wife has had kids since then?
no, she hasn't. Because that's another
Alrighty.
form of population control. If you're poor, poverty, pauperous, your state will actually pay to have you fixed because they don't want you to bring no more
Did your wife get
men.
fixed?
Yeah, because it's free
Your
by the
wife
state.
was
If you're
fixed by the state.
Yeah, if you're pauperous, then you get your free health insurance and they'll have you fixed. Not a problem. They'll cover it
So,
too.
what did
It's
she
a
do to get fixed? Did she get her tubes tied?
something of that matter.
What kind of knowledge were you hoping to get out of this interview that I sorely lacked?
What are you offering me? I
You
exchanged
said that you
information with
came
you.
here. Right, you said you came here for because you didn't want money, you wanted knowledge. And then when I asked you if you've gained any knowledge, you said no. And so now I'm asking, what kind of knowledge were you hoping to receive?
Are you in like your 20s or something?
I am in like my 20s or something. Yeah, feels good to
Unfortunately, you
say
may
that.
not have anything to offer me that I have not experienced on this journey.
Okay.
But if you
Yes,
do have
I'm
something, that would be great.
very, I could teach you math. Do you want math? That's plenty of knowledge. What did you mean by the great vowel shifts? And I'm not asking because, of course, I know what that is.
I call it
He's
bluff.
asking.
The Great Vowel Shift is when they changed our words, and that's like the whole thing. When she, I'm gonna just
You're like the
present.
Tower of Babel.
It's along those lines. It's actually even more interesting than that. Okay, but anyways, like how you identify or you say that quote unquote alleged sovereigns, they take words and they break them apart. When in fact, it's not that. It's that the other people actually took two words and smashed them together. Okay, and yes,
Mm.
that would be something like the Tower of Babel. And then the Great Mud Flood of 1846, the Mud Flood of Tartaria, that would actually follow up along the lines of Noah's Ark. You see, they found the chariot wheels where the Red Sea was parted. Everything's there.
Is this why we say color instead of chlor?
I can't really tell you off the top of my head, but I could tell you that the word boots comes from the word boats.
I see it. Just that second O being an A. Boom, boat, boot to boat. I see it.
Why are you trying to make me feel like I'm in kindergarten?
I just think because you're saying a lot of things and saying that I should know them. And I've never heard a lot of this stuff. Like, I've never heard of the great vowel shift. My producer did a lovely job pulling it up, but I don't think that I agree with you on a lot of this stuff. And I think that your opinion, and not only you, it's a lot of people that I talk to of a similar mindset. It's you believe so fiercely in your absolute correctness, like that
You
you're
wanted to bring up you
100%
wanted to
correct.
bring up Paul, so why don't you tell your audience the way that Paul, quote unquote, says that you gain your rights from? How do you do that? Tell me
Why don't you
what.
tell us?
Why don't
I
you
don't
tell?
listen to Paul. I just annoy him. I just try to annoy him because it's funny to annoy him because he gets very easily annoyed. And I beg for an interview, and that's all I do. I don't listen to Paul. Why don't you tell us where Paul tells us we get our rights from?
No, you tell us.
No, I have no idea. I literally don't listen to Paul.
Okay.
I would say he would probably say God, maybe.
The way that
Is
we
that where Paul
stand
says
on
that
the
we?
way that the way that an individual would stand on their rights. Let me ask you how you would stand on your rights. How would you make sure that they're being enforced?
I'd hire an attorney if I needed to, and then otherwise just make sure I know the laws that of the
So
jurisdiction
you
that
would
I'm working in
hire
and try to abide by those laws.
so you would hire representation because you can't present yourself, therefore you can't govern yourself as well, right? Or no?
Mm, I think that there. What do you mean in terms of govern myself? Like when I'm in the kitchen, when I'm at home, I
Well, what's
can
the
do a
word
pretty
mean?
good job of
What's the
governing myself,
etymology?
making
What's the
sure.
etymology of the word government? Or the yeah, govern.
Why does the etymology matter to you more than the current
Oh, it's not what
definition?
matters, it's the facts. Because the thing is, when you look up a definition of a word, you're defining the
Mm.
word, which means you're defying it, which means you're going against the word. The etymology is the term of the word. And
Mm-hmm.
legalese is all bullshit that comes from etymology.
Okay. All right. Well, do we have any last questions here for this gracious guest who I very much appreciate coming on, who is more than welcome to come over again, who was a wonderful guest to have? Do we have any more um, questions for him?
Lauren, I admire
Mm,
the fact that you're seeking the truth because that is what matters more than anything.
thank you.
Because what is
Thank you.
getting, yes, what is happening right now is, you know what's happening in the world right now.
Well, I agree with you. Like, for instance, I'm conservative. So, like, I agree with you in terms of there's a lot of indoctrination going on in schools. I think that we have lost a lot of our rights. For instance, during COVID, I think the government drastically overstepped their rights in a lot of jurisdictions. And um, so, yeah, I think we agree on a lot of things. I think the only thing we disagree on is if I think a law is unconstitutional, I won't simply ignore the law or defy it or just think I have a right to do as I please despite the law. I would try to work within the system to have that law overturned, to have other people also recognize that the law is unconstitutional. And that's the way that we make really positive change. So, for instance, after the pandemic, we saw a lot of changes on the books to ensure that if emergency powers are granted, they can't just be granted indefinitely. And we put more restraints on future government to prevent a pandemic response that we experienced in 2020. So I think the way that you look at facing the government is different than how I look at facing the government. And I don't look at it as trickery or deceit. I just look at it as a series of obstacles and is maybe not forming the government that I want and recognizing that there is a government that I want and working with other people who agree with me to shape the government to be the way that I believe it constitutionally was written to be. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Lauren, like I said, I appreciate your time. I think
I
I think
appreciate your time.
yes, I think that you might be interested in some more of these statues, which we can maybe do a follow up or just talk about it and you can present it, whatever.
That would be
Seek the
great.
truth.
Well, thank you so much. And I hope you have a lovely night.
You
And I'll
too.
talk to you later. Well, anyway, chat, Thank you guys so much for coming. There's so many friends that I see in the chat, and I love you all, and you're all great. And I see a couple of my haters too, and that's really cool too. So love you all. Bye.